The Book of Boba Fett made me realize three things about CAD BANE. First was how cool his live-action appearance was. Second was how controversial his live-action appearance was. And third, I needed a miniature of him. Luckily for me, Fantasy Flight Games has their very own CAD BANE miniature for Star Wars Legion. But whilst the miniature is cool, it's very expensive and comes with loads of unnecessary cards and tokens for people like me who don't play Star Wars Legion, of course. So, I decided to make my own. I started off with this gunslinger sprue from Great Escape Games, which I got off of eBay for about £8. I chose it because of the trench coat, the wide assortment of guns, and most importantly of all, hats. I then chopped out all the necessary pieces, and removed any nasty mold lines. I was left with the following, which when assembled looks like this. A generic, bland and boring cowboy, who's definitely not CAD BANE. My first step in making him more CAD BANE-ish was by making those blue gauntlets he has, for which I used these spare parts on a Space Marine sprue. Yeah, I think that's what it says in the script. I then chopped them out, cleaned them up, and filed them to a more suitable size. At this point, you might have noticed that, unlike in the show, these gauntlets don't wrap all the way around his forearms, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, and to be honest, I think they look good enough. Whilst the addition of the gauntlets certainly have made an improvement, there's still the big issue of his face, which looks completely unlike the blue bounty hunters. Now, there are many ways you could go about fixing this issue, like sculpting directly onto the face, or removing the head and replacing that with, like, for example, a Tau's. But I went with a slightly different approach by replacing the head with a Tau skull and then sculpting onto that. Already, this head looks much better than the previous one because of its lack of a nose and everything else. But don't worry, this can be fixed very easily with some green stuff. With the discovery of the replacement head, it appears that this town ain't big enough for the both of you, so someone's going to get snipped. So long, partner. The top of the Tau skull was too bulbous to fit well with the hat, so I sliced it until it was at a good level of flatness. With the hat attached, there's already a little bit of resemblance to CAD BANE. Here are all the pieces glued together, apart from the neck, which I left because I was going to do much more work on that later, and the right arm joint, as I felt that that arm looked a little bit short. To help me complete this project, I invoked the name of the almighty Shai Hulud, aka Green Stuff. This was actually my first time using green stuff, and I found it had a really strange texture. It was extremely sticky and tacky, but it was still kind of solid? I don't know, it's weird. I was told by professionals to always cut out the bit in between the blue and the yellow, as that had already slightly cured, so I did. After kneading for a while, I decided to use the green stuff on the arms and other various crevices, as I was too intimidated to try on the face, and I wanted to experiment more with the material. After some green stuffing, this is what his body looks like. Now onto the head. The first obvious thing to do is fix that crack in the middle of his face. I then use little blobs of green stuff as eyes. Here he is with both eyes in place. For his jaw, I used this jawbone piece from GW's skull box. I green stuffed the jaw in place and added some little teeth on his top jaw. It was at this point that I thought he really started looking like CAD Bane. But before I could attach the head, I needed to slice off his bandana. Now it was time to focus on his breathing tubes. I thought about sculpting them out of green stuff, or using Lego as texture rollers, but in the end I decided to use some tubes from a Necron sprue. I attached the tubes with blobs of green stuff. I then attached the entire head with a big blob of green stuff acting as the neck. I extended the tubes with another piece from a Necron sprue, which I then glued in place. For the pack that his tubes connect into, I used a piece from a Stargrave sprue, as I just needed anything vaguely techy. I then snipped this gun arm out, and then began trimming away any unnecessary pieces, which turned out to be a lot. With the pack in place, all I needed to do now was some finishing touches, like clipping off the hammers at the back of his revolvers, and reusing the spare parts from his gauntlets as scopes for his guns. And now, with all of that in place, he was basically done. I did neaten things up a bit here and there with green stuff, and gave him a splash of black paint. But anyway, here he is, CAD Bane, done and dusted. If you'd like to see him being painted up like he is in the thumbnail, I will be uploading a painting tutorial in a while, so if you want to see that, make sure to subscribe. But I've also got other things planned, like I think after that I'll be painting up my Rancor, and potentially even doing some sculpting of Shin Godzilla. Godzillas? I don't know. Anyway, thanks for watching, and goodbye.